श्रीगणतं भजति चेतलक्षतियुतं श्रीगणनाथं भजति आगमनिसन्तुतम् अखिलदेव पूजितं योगशालिभालितं सेवितम् आगमनिसन्नुतम् अखिलदेव पूजितं योगशालिभालितं मुदितं चिन्मूलकमलस्थितं श्रीगणनाथं भजय शक्तियुतं श्रीगणनाथं भजय.
Let's give a big hand. Thank you, Sahana and Mahati, for the beautiful invocation. Before I proceed further, in the interest of full disclosure, I must say that as a pure technologist, I never indulged in any serious seeking to understand the nuances of a budget, except for the curiosity to know whether my TDS for the next year is going to increase or decrease. And as a layman, when I was asked to MC this event, I challenged myself with some budget trivia. So I intend to share few of them as we go along today evening. And for those eminent guests, you may have to bear with these trivias, since it may not indulge in the profound nuances of a budget. So here's a sample. Do you know the longest time taken to overcome jet lag? What is the longest time taken to overcome jet lag? You may be wondering, what is the relevance of budget with jet lag? Any guesses? Sorry? 3 hours, okay. Maybe weeks. But you know, till the year 1998, the Indian Union budget was presented at 5 p.m. IST, following the British parliamentary tradition. Only after 99, it was shifted to 11 a.m. So it took nearly 52 years for the budget to get adjusted to the jet lag. So this is something that's interesting. Hope you now understand the flavor of the trivia that is coming your way later. But as we gather today, at a time when the global economic landscape is shaped by uncertainty, geopolitical tensions, supply chain realignments, inflationary pressures, and technological disruption at a pace that we have never witnessed so far. What makes India's 2026 budget especially significant is that it is being presented exactly 2 decades ahead of the nation's vision for Vikshit Bharat 2047. It is therefore, it represents not just an annual financial exercise, but an early marker in the long-term national journey. With this backdrop, I invite Dr. Vasant Kumar Mehta, Pro Vice Chancellor of Sri Chandrasekharendra Saraswati Vishwa Mahavidyalaya, to deliver the welcome address for the evening. Over to you, Vasant.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Pranams to the lotus feet of His Holiness Pujya Shri Shankara Vijayendra Shankaracharya Swamiji and Pujya Shri Satya Chandrasekharendra Saraswati Shankaracharya Swamiji. A very good evening to our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. G. Srinivasu, leaders of industry, financial professionals, and other distinguished guests, learned speakers, faculty members, and dear students. It is my privilege to welcome you all this evening on behalf of Sri Chandrasekharendra Saraswati Vishwa Mahavidyalaya, SCSMV, as we are called in short. The journey commenced as a Sanskrit Patashala in the year 1987 with the blessings of His Holiness Shankaracharya of Kanchi Kamakoti Peetham, with a cherished desire to revive Kanchipuram as a Ghatika Sthanam, a revered seat of learning and scholarly examination. In the year 93, the institution blossomed into a deemed university and it became multifaceted, multidisciplinary, and today we have various programs in the departments of arts, science, engineering, technology, management, allied health sciences, and Ayurveda. The recent addition has been Anvik Shiki, a school of law for women that was established last year. We also have a unique palm leaf heritage center that houses thousands of ancient palm leaf manuscripts that are hundreds of years old and that hold our knowledge in a very tacit form. And we are now carefully preserving it and also digitizing it. The Shilpa Patashala is another unique department where young scholars are being trained in the rare art of temple architecture, learning from the authentic and original texts. SCSVMV is not just an educational institution, it is a vibrant crucible where the ancient meets the contemporary and where the timeless values of our Indian culture are not merely taught, but they are lived. In our culture, debates and discussions have been a vital aspect. You must have heard of Tarka Shastra, the traditional Indian science of logic and reasoning. It is a testimony to this. In the same spirit, the university has been hosting several activities and events that see scholars, experts, faculty, and students engaging in discussions and debates on matters and policies that impact us, from climate change to foreign policy. Today, we are gathered here for one such event, Focus Budget 2026, and this is happening in the immediate aftermath of the presentation of Union Budget 2026 by our Honorable Finance Minister, who now has the distinction of presenting it for the 9th year in succession. And we will dissect today the complexities and understand the impact of the budget on the nation's growth. I feel very honored and privileged to welcome Sri K. Balasubramanian, Joint Secretary in the Ministry of Finance, to have a first-hand perspective from the Ministry of Finance helps us move beyond headlines and truly grasp the policy intent behind the year's fiscal roadmap. Thank you, sir, for joining us. I also extend a warm welcome to our esteemed panelists who will bring a 360-degree view of the budget. Mr. Krishnan Iyer, CEO of NDR Invit IT Managers, representing the infra and investments. Welcome, sir. Mr. M.R. Venkatesh, advocate and noted economic commentator, whose sharp analysis always provides deep legal and fiscal clarity. Welcome, sir. Mr. K.R. Shekhar, partner at Deloitte and a valued member of our finance committee here at SCSVMV. Welcome, sir. Sri N. Muthuraman, co-founder of the Swarajya magazine. It's our privilege to welcome you. And the moderator for the evening, Sri Sriram Veeraraghavan from Sammati Consulting is here with us. Welcome. We look forward to an intellectually stimulating debate under your guidance. Budget 2026 comes at a time when India is navigating global shifts and domestic aspirations. Through this event titled Budget 26, What Changed, What Matters, we aim to decode how the latest fiscal policies will influence the common man, the corporate sector, as well as the academic landscape. I am confident by the end of this evening, we'll leave with a clearer understanding of India's economic trajectory. Once again, I welcome our knowledge partner edX of the New Indian Express and media partners Indian Express, Dinamani, and broadcast partner Janam TV for supporting this initiative. I wish you all a productive and enlightening session. Thank you.
Thank you, Vasant, especially giving the broad overview of the range of programs that are available in SCSVMV, as well as a very thoughtful welcome address. As I promised here earlier, the next trivia is, do you know which was the shortest union budget speech in India's history? It was COVID time. Okay, good guess. But at least as I told you, I'm not an expert in budget, but Google tells me that it was a budget presented by Dhirubhai M. Patel in 1977-78 under Morarji Desai's government. Okay. 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 So it says 800 words. That's what I mean. It is counted in terms of words, but I take Shekhar Sir's input. So that is something that we are learning today. And again, probably this is a reminder for me to keep my interludes really short. As we move to the next segment, at the World Economic Forum at Davos last month, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney in his speech said, and I quote, "Let me be direct. We are in the midst of a rupture, not a transition," end quote. Mark Carney's words are a reflection of the global scenario in every aspect, whether it is trade, technology, or geopolitics. It is such a dynamic global context Indian government has come out with Budget 2026. So it would be interesting to understand government's perspective and thinking behind 2026 budget from an eminent person who is at the very nerve center of framing the budget, Sri K. Balasubramaniam Sir, Joint Secretary, Department of Revenue at the Ministry of Finance, Government of India. Sir, thank you for joining us this evening. Few words about Sri K. Balasubramaniam. He plays a key role in policy formulation and administration relating to transfer pricing, Financial Action Task Force, and service tax, contributing to India's fiscal and regulatory framework. He brings extensive experience in public finance, taxation, and international regulatory engagement, with deep involvement in strengthening compliance and governance mechanisms. He actively represents India in multilateral forums and intergovernmental discussions, supporting policy reforms aligned with global best practices and national priorities. Sri Balakrishnan sir, once again, welcome. And before I hand it over to you, I think K.R. Shekhar sir wanted to say a few words. Sir, do you want to? Okay. So with this, I am going to invite Sir Sri K. Balasubramaniam sir, and then we will start with the moderation with Bala.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha, pranams to lotus feet of Holiness and Kanchi Shankaracharya. Bala, thank you so much for being here, and I know you are busy schedule. Just to talk few minutes about Bala before I go to the questions. Bala was in private sector till 5 years back. He was heading Wipro Global Tax, and then when the government announced the policy of lateral IAS, so he moved from private sector to the Ministry of Finance, and he has been working with the Ministry of Finance. And people, if you go to the YouTube or India Today channel where they put a FM team on the budget, Bala would be standing as a part of the FM team. It's a great sense of pride for me personally, and also for multiple reasons. Just before Bala joined the Ministry of Finance, he was heading Wipro Global Tax, and he was advising the Wipro founder. He's a phenomenal and ardent devotee of Periva. So just 2 weeks before he was taking the charge, he came to Tirupati. Periva was camping there. He took Periva's blessings, And then at the point of time, he recommended a significant CSR amount from Azim Premji Foundation to our university. So Bala has been a more than finance and Ministry of Finance person. We had requested Bala for his phenomenal devotion to the mud. Thank you, Bala. Thank you for being here. So, Bala, I just want to start a question with you. You have various budgets and you have been analyzing the budget from the other side. Like me, you have been analyzing the budget. Which are important features that you wanted to give a message through the budget, Bala?
Shekhar, thank you. And it's a very proud moment for me to be part of this particular event. More than, I would say, you captured it very well that I'm a devotee of Shri Kanchi Periyavas, but I'm also a product of Shankara institutions. I studied in Shankara Vidyalaya, and I'm very proud. It's very proud to say that I'm product of one of the Shankara institutions, long back, instituted by the Holiness Shri Jayendra Saraswati Swamigal. So every year it used to be an occasion and a privilege for us to meet the Periyavas and take his blessings as part of the school curriculum itself. So very proud to be back in one of the premier institutions run by the MUD, and thankful to you for having me this evening. Apart from that, if we get into the subject itself on the budget, Shekhar, again, I have seen many budgets standing on the other side like you, along with you, analyzing the tax aspects. In fact, I still remember, budget being presented at 11 o'clock, and evening you used to organize these seminars, and we used to rush to the city to attend your seminars. Initial few years, I've seen your lectures, heard your lectures, then started becoming part of the team which analyzed it, and started becoming part of the panel. Now, last 3 budgets, although I've been in government for 4 years, last 3 budgets have been associated, especially on the tax proposals, in terms of how these tax proposals have been taken up, debated within the department and within the government at various levels of government, and then it becomes part of the budget itself. Apart from that, if you look at this budget, this is the 3rd budget of this particular government in this particular term: July 24, February 25, and February 26. So we will have to look at it, as a continuum. We cannot break these budgets individually and say that this is, a new start or a new beginning, because we have to keep the context in which, these budgets have been presented over a period of time, because the theme is all about having continuity and stability. And broadly, if you look at it, I would say from an economic point of view, there are 3 basic, I would say, foundations. One is, ensuring the macroeconomic stability. In fact, there is a very strong statement which has been made that we have now a little long-term view, for a 7% growth on a long-term basis. What used to be around 6.5, 6.8 kind of a number. Now we have a confidence to put out in the public domain with the confidence that we can achieve 7% over a period of time. Of course, this is below the potential of the country. Our aspirational growth should be around 8%, but we are getting there. And from where we started, to have a confidence to now put out saying that on a long-term basis we will reach 7%. That's a bold statement to have been made in the budget. The second aspect which is important is the fiscal discipline, which this particular government has always stood by, because path to consolidation has been laid out very clearly. Of course, there were disruptions during the COVID time frame, but it has been clawed back very methodically, and we are reaching towards that particular goal of fiscal consolidation, and slowly and steadily we are getting there. The third one is about the focus on infrastructure, focus on capex, and this particular aspect started off two budgets back, and we are continuing that particular focus without being rattled by various noise factors which are created and the headwinds which are there in the marketplace. So 12.2 lakh crores of capex being laid out is very important fiscal aspect which has been held out in this budget. Now, apart from these, there are various schemes which have been laid out. I don't want to get into each one of them, but for me, what stands out, are the push towards manufacturing and push towards infrastructure. Because if you look at the infrastructure itself, there are stress being laid on the city economic regions, the high-speed rail corridors. I think these are going to be some important milestones which have been announced in this budget, which will have a pretty long-term effect when we look at it. Because when Golden Quadrilateral was announced in 1999, we did not realize perhaps the impact of it, but the impact it had on the logistics in the last 2 decades is quite significant for that one particular scheme of Golden Quadrilateral. So similar to that, if you look at it in this budget, there is a stress on the economic regions, the city economic regions, and the high-speed rail corridors. The second aspect, which is also important to be noted here, is the stress on MSMEs, because MSMEs are going to be viewed as champions of growth. They are pillars of growth, and the focus which has been created on the capital formation, the liquidity through the TREAD scheme, and also the professional handholding which is being looked at through the corporate mitras. I think these three aspects are very relevant, to be stressed as far as the MSMEs are concerned, because the MSMEs are the pillars for job creation in the economy. Now, the next aspect is also about the education to employment linkage, right? Because we will have to have a capacity building and a skill building in such a manner that we get to the final outcome of employment generation. And towards this, there are various sectors which have been identified: tourism, healthcare, the animation visual effects, as they call it, AVGC sector. So these are some of those sectors which have been identified for the purpose of having getting to a situation of having an education and a skill building which will impact the employment generation in the country. And lastly, there is a huge stress on tech and AI, because in this world we cannot forget the disruption which is being created by the artificial intelligence, and therefore there is a lot of stress which has been laid on the here as well. And added to that, there are investments which are being planned in the healthcare sector, the caregivers, the allied health, and also on medical tourism. So these are important aspects where we will look at employment generation. So in my view, this budget is not about the headline giveaways, right? Because it is more about architecture. It is more about those institutions which will have which will propel growth, and in terms of how it generates employment and long-term growth, and how to sustain it. Because when you look at FM speech, she laid out 3 kartavyas, and those 3 kartavyas are very important in terms of how it has shaped this particular budget.
Thank you, Bala.
So I'm not I'm not covering the tax proposals. Shekhar, we can take it
Yeah.
as
Thank you, Bala, for bringing the brilliant synopsis. So I'll start with my first question on the GDP growth, where you rightly alluded that India needs 8.5%, 8 to 8.5 percentage growth, where we are pegging at 7 percentage growth of GDP. While I understand the government is signing the FA or in the process of signing the FATA with USA because the exports constitute a significant part of the GDP growth, and service sector almost contributes 1/3 of the GDP growth, and agri contributes another 1/3. So with 7 to 8.5, what are the 2 or 3 important uh, kickstart that will take 7 to 8.5 percentage growth, Bala, from your perspective and based on the budget proposals?
so. Shekhar, I think uh, even FM mentioned it in her post-budget interactions. Honorable PM also mentioned we are future ready in terms of looking at various aspects of the economy. We have very sound fundamentals. We have a very strong balance sheet as far as the banks are concerned, and the reform express, as we call it, is on a steady path, progressing well. So therefore, all the decks which are required to be placed in the right places, we are there. What is important is the private sector investment, and and this is something that we have been
Yeah.
stressed for a long time, and what we need to see is more of private sector investment, and that is where FTAs with EU, FTAs with US. In fact, the proposed FTA for which the terms have been signed with the GCC, these are very important because we are a very large populous country, and for us, what is important is domestic job creation. And without domestic job creation, without domestic investments, it is very difficult to get to 8% growth level. And for us, we have moved from 6.5 to 7% growth comfortably with all the cleaning that are required to be done on the economic front. Having done all that, being future ready, I think it is important to to tell the private sector that it is all ready now. Please come and may start your investments, because the confidence that the government has reposed in all its institutions is economic institutions are very I would say it's tremendous, and it has paid off in the last few years, and therefore it is now time for us to see the extending of harm which comes from the private sector in terms of the investment itself. So what we can see for 8% is going to be an investment-led, is going to be an employment-led growth, and that is where we will have to work towards.
Thank you, Bala. I just move on to manufacturing, where one of the core focus areas of the budget in the current year, where finance minister announced various proposals, including setting up of textile park, allowing certain relief for the garment companies where they can sell the units, garments outside their SEZ unit due to the fact that they are not able to export it. Announcing ISM2 machine, also putting up a huge manufacturing mission. There's a lot of focus on manufacturing. And also equally, there is an infrastructure investment where they are pushing from 11 to 12.2 crore. I'll come to CER and air corridor a little bit later. But with the kind of parameters and flow that the finance minister is talking about, that you alluded one more important aspect, that private sector need to step up their investment in manufacturing. What do you think that it will push private sector to invest more into manufacturing? That should be done from ease of doing business, which will come later. But what should be the one or two top priorities from a government perspective to make sure the private sector invest in lot in manufacturing?
So in fact, I would say Shekhar is what is stopping? Because, in the run up to the budget, we have had multiple conversations. In fact, as part of tax proposals also, we interacted with various India's growth potential, but headwinds, going away, right? There were significant geopolitical headwinds, which I think industry was on a wait and watch mode. In my view, I think that is, slightly behind us with the announcement of the India-US trade deal. And I don't think the timing could have been any better, coming right after the budget presentation. In fact, I can tell you very frankly, the budget preparation, the growth, which has been assumed, every numbers which have gone into without the assumption of India-US USD. Right. In fact, the chief economic advisor came out and said, now we have confidence that we can even hit a little more than 7.4%, the growth which has been assumed for the next year in terms of the real growth itself. So I would say these are tailwinds, which are coming our way, and it is for us to seize that opportunity. And government has laid out, in the last few years, various schemes. In fact, if you look at this budget itself, as you rightly pointed out, the various schemes for the textiles, the semiconductors, rare earth, right? That is very important in terms of
I was about to come to that.
focus that we have put on critical minerals and the rare earth, and also on the electronics, right? In fact, one of the I would say examples of government partnering with the industry is on the electronics itself, and we have had significant, I would say, traction on the electronic manufacturing in India. And we have, in fact, if you look at some of the tax proposals also, we are moving towards a situation where we provide a conducive tax environment for these industries to be nurtured. Another thing which is very important is the push for the biopharma also, because that is another area where India has a lot of strength. And much of the Indian exports to the US also comes from the pharmaceutical industries. And again, there we have a rare combination of, I would say, the technical skills that are required, and the advantage of some of the technology angulation which is there in the pharma. And if invest more in that direction, I think these are various aspects which would help us propel towards the 8% growth.
Thank you, Bala. I just want to take the last point from you, the pharma as well as the manufacturing, which we see a lot of push in the budget. But one of the incidental things that connected, allied with pharma and manufacturing, is an R&D. While
what is ailing the SMEs? I would say two aspects. One is the receivables, other is the power itself, the cost of power, right? In my view, big push is required, which would come over a period of time, and power is, of course, a state subject as well. So the focus at the lower level. But over a period of time, I think AI is only going to enable the ease of living, and as well as the ease of doing business over a period of time. Just as we saw this in the 2000s during how the tech industry itself transformed over a period of time. So all the concerns that we had in the 2000s, I think we have been able to tide over, stabilize well. And I'm sure the way AI is disrupting now, these are short-term disruptions, and we should not look at it as a threat. In fact, government side, there's a lot of push, on being at the front of AI, right? Because there's going to be AI summit in second week of February. In fact, the Honorable Prime Minister himself is hosting all the global leaders and the tech giants and the who's who of the industry in India. And there's a lot going to be done in terms of putting India's interest at the forefront. Are going to happen and are happening, in on the AI side as far as the technology sector is concerned, and realizing that the larger data center AI is going to be data centric, right? It's a very data heavy business, because it requires a lot of learning and iterations, which requires huge data mining capabilities. The large language models are all modeled on huge data and big data being processed. and data centers are going to play a very, very important role in this aspect. Realizing that India has, very promptly, and if you look at it, no other tax policy has been given this kind of a longevity in terms of laying out that there will be a tax holiday for foreign businesses which are procuring data center services from India. They will have a tax holiday until 2047. So that's a very long horizon as far as the tax policy is concerned, because we have never had, even in the best of days, the SEZ benefits were for 5 and 10 years, 5 years of 100% and 5 years of 50%. So we have not had a complete tax holiday for 22 years. So from that point of view, government has realized the potential of AI and the potential of what we can benefit from AI in terms of the investments, in terms of employment generation, in terms of supporting the investments into the AI itself. So from that point of view, I think we have tried to stay ahead of the curve as far as this particular sector is concerned.
Before I go to part B after the last question on part A, first, this time the finance minister focuses on employment generation and focused on skill development, particularly in the tourism sector. And also finance minister in a speech has said about northeastern sector where there are a lot of Buddhist monasteries where they want to focus on that. So I just want to pick up your thought on, does the government finally recognize that tourism is an important industry for an employment generation, or is there any other measures that is expected on the tourism industry? That's number one. And two, I have two another allied questions for me from the Kanchipuram perspective and Chennai perspective, which I'll come a little bit later. But I just want to understand from you the focus on the industry, Bala, from employment generation.
It's very important. In fact, even we as Indians, when we choose our vacations, we stand to compare our Indian vacations with foreign vacations. And I can tell you, in the last few years, there's tremendous investment which has gone into the spots and the hotspots. Although there is a lot more to catch up in terms of the facilities, in terms of the experience itself, right? From what we gather from the foreign vacations, it is very important that we focus on those aspects as well. Apart from that, it can one is providing because once you have these tourist hotspots developed, you develop some kind of an interest for people to come in, both domestic and foreign, because we can't rely only on international tourists coming into India and lifting the sector. The domestic tourism is as important aspect in terms of making it very viable. So from that point of view, we need to focus on the facilities and also on the experience part. So both are being laid stress, and significant investments are being focused there. In fact, you talked about Purodhya, you talked about the Buddhist circuit, right? The Buddhist monastery and the circuit in the northeastern, which is very important in terms of how we package these tourist attractions and present it in such a manner that there is a kind of interest which is being which can be, tourism is concerned. So it would the obvious fallout would be that you have development in that area, you have employment which is being generated, both in terms of the handicrafts, both in terms of the services which come along with it, and the focus is on all aspects as far as tourism is concerned.
Thank you so much for bringing on the tourism sector. I have a little bit of a selfish interest in that. One of the proposals which we presented from a chamber perspective as well as from the much side with the blessings of His Holiness is on building up the Adi Shankara corridor from Kaladi to Kashmir, which we are given a proposal. Because building up a corridor from Kaladi to Kashmir by Adi Shankara tract will create a solid infra corridor, plus it also brings a significant skill development and tourism. If you want, I will resubmit it to you, but I just wanted to bring that perspective because southern part of India, as you know, has got a lot of tourism areas, particularly the temples, monasteries, and various institutions. So it would be great if you connect a tourism corridor that would help us to provide an employment generation. That's point number one. And the last point, before I go to part B, first time I saw finance minister touching sports sector, which I saw a lot of sports goods, sports ecosystem, sports goods manufacturing, coaches, training, and all. Is there any policy that is coming out, and can you throw some light on the sports sector, Bala?
Yeah, please. So there is a very, very high level statement of intent which is being laid. In fact, sports sector is also getting a lot of attention at the highest level. You would have seen that, Honorable Prime Minister interacting with each of the achievers in the sports segment itself. And there is going to be a policy which is being evolved. What was a Khelo India mission? Khelo India was not a mission; it was a project. Now it is being given a status of a mission. So there is a clear distinction between a project and a mission in government. And Khelo India is now becoming a mission where the significant investments from a budgetary support point of view would come in, and also it would be tracked in terms of the development at the highest level, because the aspiration, Shekhar, is to host Olympics, and the Honorable Prime Minister has also mentioned it many times that we are making India ready as far as Olympics in 2036 is concerned, and we are making significant investments as part of Commonwealth Games which are being hosted. These are, while hosting international events is one aspect, the other aspect is to establish India as a credible, participant, and in international events, and that focus has been relentlessly, given in the last few years, and it's remarkable how we have come a long way and focused on, sports other than cricket, which is very important and has paid a lot of, I would say, rich dividends. And there'll be continued focus on that. And this budget especially has laid that foundation in terms of making a very specific reference to the investments being made in the sports sector.
Thank you, Bala. I just go to part B of the finance minister's speech. First time I saw there is no tinkering of individual tax rates after a long time. There's no tinkering of tax rates, and rather I saw reduction in the tax rate for tax deductors. Was fortunately which I worked with you on that as well as on the safe harbor provisions. Is the government thinking that there won't be? I'm not worried about reduction rates as long as there's no increase in the tax rates. The next year, I'm very happy. I just want to understand what is the government policy towards the individual taxation, Bala.
So, in fact, Shekhar, if you look at it, this is a point which is repeatedly made by the Honorable FM as well, that right during the COVID, in fact, post-COVID as well, you wouldn't have seen an increase in the tax rate. In fact, there was, if at all, there has been only a decrease in the tax rate as far as individuals are concerned. Consistently, I would say the focus has been on providing, a ease of compliance. And if you look at it in July 24, we came up with a specific changes in the slabs. Again, taking cue from some of the stakeholder representations, including yourself, we changed the slabs again in February 25. A very significant and a deep change which was made, not just in terms of the 12 lakhs of tax rebate which was given. Even the slabs were rearranged, and now the maximum slab starts at 24 lakhs. what used to start at 15 lakhs. So there have been a significant change in terms of how we have approached individual taxation. Added to that, the focus has been on how to move people to the new tax regime and how to make it attractive for people to come into new tax regime, because we think that new tax regime is less litigious, easier, of course, for the taxpayer to comply with, and from the viewpoint of deductors, the employers, etc., it is much less a burden in terms of verifying the HRA receipts, verifying the LTC claims, verifying the the various investments, etc., etc. So it puts a huge stress of compliance burden on both the employers and also on the tax administration. So from that point of view, I would say the focus on moving people into a new tax regime has also been an important focus, and we have been able to achieve that. In fact, we have moved more than 80% of taxpayers into new tax regime as far as individuals are concerned. And in my view, in the this year, that is 25-26, when the returns are filed in July, these numbers will be upwards of 95%.
Phenomenal.
It's in yeah. So except for few individuals who are in business, in my view, many of the tax regime. So it would completely change the paradigm in terms of how we approach taxation, because once it is only about tax rates and not about these deductions and exemptions. It is easy for us to have a targeted approach to these rates, and we will have to allow these rates to stabilize to see where we are able to expand the tax base. Right? With deductions and exemptions being there, it is very difficult to have a targeted approach in terms of how we approach the individual taxation itself. Now, once we stabilize these rates, I think the February 25 change of the tax slabs, the way it is being now made very gradual scaling up. In my view, it would stay for some time, and we should let that stabilize and then see how we kind of not tinker with the rates, but how we kind of move with the scaling approach, so that we pass on the benefits in a right manner and into the right segments, as we call it.
I leave the ask audience to the questions. I just want to compliment you and also the finance minister for mitigating the industry issue on the transfer pricing regime, particularly for ECs and IT services. It was a great move from the government by accepting 15.5% as a margin, which means a significant tax borne by the government. I would like to compliment you because I was interacting from as a stakeholder. Compliment you and the finance minister for that move, and also bringing the tax holiday for the foreign companies, which I would like to take it as a part of panel discussion. Before I request audience to one or two questions to you, Bala, I just want to ask you a final one. What do you think a university like Chandrasekharan Vishwa Mahabharati Vidyalaya, which you are familiar with that, should see some of the benefits of the finance minister scheme, like a digital tourism sector? What do you think we can do, Bala?
So, in my view, Shekhar, I think where we can have a significant traction, significant synergy is having groups of the university identified who can work on various policy initiatives of the government, right?
Okay.
And provide inputs, because from the point of view of government, it is important to get multi-stakeholder inputs. And stakeholders, we generally get to hear from top economists, industrialists. We don't get to hear from students and the youth. And in fact, if you look at it, this time, the Honorable Finance Minister made it a point to have about 30 college students sit through the budget presentation in the parliament. These were identified students. They were invited. They were in the visitors gallery, hearing the finance minister present the budget speech. As she presented the budget, they were in the parliament hearing it firsthand. And after the budget presentation, FM just had a customary press conference for about 45 minutes or so, and she did not meet the media. She met these 30 students, over a couple of hours of discussion on the budget day evening. So mind you, the finance minister gets really, really busy post the budget presentation, but she sat with all these young minds and interacted with them. In fact, the video is available online, and I would encourage all the students to go through that. So it's very important that the perspective of the youth, because we are presenting a budget, not, of course, it is the income and receipts for the coming financial year, but it lays the foundation, for the next in few decades, if not couple of decades, when we approach the Viksit Bharat. And the beneficiaries of this, the stakeholders at that point in time, would be the students that we are talking to today, right? So from that point of view, in my view, you have done the right thing. The university has done the right thing by organizing this particular discussion. Many of the discussions that we may have may not resonate well with the students, but I would request them to go through some of the items in the budget speech, and also I would encourage them to go through the budget documents, the receipts and the expenditure, how these are made, because government's expenditure is very important in terms of how we identify where the money goes to, because the speech lays stress only on few aspects, right? But what is hidden is in the budget documents itself. So I would encourage students, like commerce students can look at the expenditure side of the budget. Some of the science students can get into some of the announcements which have been made, and how they can be taken to the grassroots level in terms of making an impact in the rural and also in the semi-urban areas. So that would be a very valuable feedback, from the students, from the university to the government.
Okay, but all the university officials are there, Vice Chancellor and the Pro VC. Definitely, we are taking note of it, and then we will get back to you. Two key takeaways. One, for me as an individual and part of the Kanchi University, is that sending you the Adi Shankara corridor document to you from Kaladi to Kashmir, and working with the university for the students to interact with you. And if luck permits and Perivar blessings, interact with the Honorable Finance with the next budget, Bala. So if audience has got any questions to Mr. Balasubramaniam, please. Yes, sir. Yeah, please go ahead, sir. Here you are, this person, gentleman. Go through. So, Bala, just two questions. I know you have got a schedule at 7 o'clock. I just ask two questions, Bala.
Take one then.
Yeah, please go ahead, sir.
I am Radhakrishnan from actually I was this semiconductor kind of industry. This is a very important one. It has not been seen in the last few years budget. This seems to have come in this year's budget. Is it because of the importance of people in the sector of research people and people who have been who wanted to have the importance of semiconductor, and there has not been here in India? Is it? Can you say how it was generated?
So, it's a very, good question, but it would require a lengthy answer, but I'll try to, encapsulate it. Of course, the budget announces the India Semiconductor Mission, and it is the next level of the journey in the semiconductor business itself, because we would like the chip design to be with the Indian IP, right? And also the focus is on the equipments and the material manufacturing, and it is also on the supply chain resilience, right? We want to ensure that there is a reduction in the import dependence itself, in terms of the critical minerals, in terms of the rare earth, and also in terms of the semi-finished materials and the electronics which come with it. So global chip with Indian design is the focus, as far as this particular mission is concerned. And there will be focused effort on the research centers. There will be industry-led research centers and advanced training, which would come along with it in as part of the mission. And there is a very deep talent pool as far as India is concerned, be it the chip designers or the process engineers, or even the manufacturing capabilities that we have. This would enable a huge job creation as far as India is concerned. So therefore, it is very right occasion for India to have laid a lot of stress on the semiconductor mission, and it will hold us in good stead, in years to come.
Thank you, Bala. I think we have got off time. Sorry, sir. He has got. Sorry, because he's running for a meeting.
Allow us to interact. It's few time.
No, sir. I will come.
Yes, sir.
Please ask the question, sir.
Thanks for giving permission. Yes, I appreciate Madras Rally has this kind of session. The most populous country is a huge percentage of infectious and non-communicable diseases, and our healthcare allocation is nearly
1.2% of the GDP. So Indian healthcare is in par with sub-Saharan healthcare. If you don't invest in healthcare, what is the point in having Olympics? And we will never become a superpower or a emerging or a rich country. So we don't know how do we lobby and educate you people. We don't have health economists. Unless otherwise we invest in healthcare. India is a poor and diseased country.
Shekhar, I couldn't.
His point was that healthcare allocation is very low. If India is not significant allocating in the healthcare sector, when India has got such a global ambitions like hosting Olympics and encouraging into Commonwealth Games, how do you coordinate that? Because we need to have a strong healthcare backbone which would help India to bolster speed. How are you going to manage the poor, according to him, the lower healthcare allocation compared to the industry and other growth balance?
Precisely.
Absolutely. I think I cannot.
Right, sir. Your question is right.
As good as you.
Thank you.
I cannot but agree with him. It is very important that we focus on healthcare, and that is where this budget makes certain beginning. I agree with him. The budget allocation is about 1.2% of GDP, but over a period, I think we will have to look at how we enhance both on healthcare and education. These are two important aspects that we will have to focus on. But having said that, we are focusing on the as far as the skill building for healthcare. Is being identified, for skill building in terms of how we are looking at capacity building in this area. But there is a lot to do on the healthcare infrastructure itself, and that is something that we will have to focus on as we move along.
Thank you, but I just what is said.
Yes,
last question, sir. Please, sir. Just I'll take the dinner meeting at 7 o'clock is staying back here, sir.
I'll take only 1 more minute, sir. If you allow it, if you do not allow it, it's okay.
But sorry, last question, Bala. I know you've got to go. Just last question, sir. Please go ahead.
Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. I am R. Chandrasekharan, a chartered accountant. Just only one question is regarding
the foreign direct investment in data centers. We thank the finance minister for giving a tax holiday for over 22 years from now. But why not encourage the Indian data centers a similar or a reduced tax holiday? So 22 years is a long time. It also gives Make in India a good film. Thank you very much, sir.
Absolutely. I think, I think there is some misconception which we tried to allay in the last couple of days. When we say we have given a tax holiday to the foreign companies, the foreign companies who procure data center services in India, it is not necessarily that the foreign company invests in the data center. Even assuming that the Indian entrepreneurs invest in data center and provide data center services to the foreign companies, it would also be eligible for the same tax holiday. We don't need a separate tax holiday. The same tax holiday would work, and the Indian entrepreneurs are as eligible as the foreign investors who would put their money in the data center in India. So there is no distinction which has been created, and the Indian entrepreneurs, in fact, when we had the stakeholder consultations, we consulted both the Indian entrepreneurs and the foreign CSPs, as we call it, the cloud service providers. So it is a very, very neutral policy as far as foreign versus domestic is concerned. We are encouraging both. What we are encouraging is Indian investment, that is investment in Indian data center. Whether it comes from foreign or domestic, it doesn't matter.
Thank you. And probably the last two questions, we'll take it as part of panel discussion also. Probably will give more clarity on that. Bala, I know very well you are rushing for a dinner at 7 o'clock. Thank you so much, Bala, for taking your time and being with us. And look forward to meeting you at later point of time. Thank you so much, Bala.
Thank you so much, and my humble pranams to all the elders and to the lotus feet of His Holiness Shankaracharya Swamigal. Thank you.
Bala, one more thing. When I go there, we will send for me, Bala. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Bala. Thank you. And one more thing, before you leave, we have M.R. Venkatesh, whom you questioned before you joined Ministry of Finance, is part of the panel. So if MRV has got any question, MRV, you can ask him separately, not now, but you can ask him separately, MRV.
Nice. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bala. Thanks a lot.
Jai Hind.
Jai Hind. Thank you, Bala sir, and thank you, Shekhar sir, for making this a very insightful discussion, especially laying out government's perspective on a whole array of topics, starting from tourism, medical, AI. So I think it has been very informative, and it has gone just beyond the allocations and headline. Thank you, both Shekhar sir as well as Bala sir. Now we want to move to the next segment, and I know that no budget can satisfy everyone. We could feel that here. So I'm going to skip the trivia and go to the next much awaited segment. I understand that on the on the budget day, the most searched items on internet in India is income tax, gold, and employment, apparently. So basically, it talks about what does this budget mean personally for me, right? So that is what people are looking for. But here in this panel discussion, we are going to address a broader array of topics with a power-packed and eminent set of professionals who are going to indulge in a discussion. And first, I want to invite Vice Chancellor Sir, Professor G. Srinivasu, to honor the panelist and the moderator. Sir, please, can you come to the stage? Yeah. So first, I would like to invite Sri Sriram Veeraraghavan, who has probably the most challenging and as well as an interesting job for the evening, because he is going to moderate the panel discussion. Welcome, sir, Sri Sriram, and VC sir, if you can honor. while he's being honored, he's a founding partner of Samati Consulting and Analytics. He was early officer of at ICRA. He has over 3 decades of experience in business consulting. His work includes advising a number of banks in India and NBFCs on growth strategy and restructuring. He has also worked closely with global banks in assisting their into India. So welcome, Sri, and we look forward to an interesting discussion. Somebody who joined us online, Sri Krishnan S. Iyer, CEO at NDR in YT. He has more than 2 decades of experience in infrastructure investments, private equity, and risk management, and he leads the strategic vision and execution of NDR in YT with a focus on delivering long-term value to stakeholders. He also serves as a board member in MB Industries, a leader in advanced polymers, and also in Vision Technology, an IT consulting firm. In addition, he is also a visiting faculty at IIM Bangalore. So like Lord Krishna, he seems to take several roles. So sir, today we look forward to your Vishwarupa Darshan on the budget 2026. Welcome to the panel discussion.
Thank you for having, it's my misfortune that I'm not there in person, but thank you very much.
You can mention. And we'll send the prasad either through Anand or when I come on Monday, I'll hand it over in person to you.
Thank you.
Next, of course, our own K.R. Shekhar sir. So, no, you are part of the panel and we owe a lot of, so we will never be able to thank Shekhar sir enough for the support, guidance and inspiration he brings to the university. And he has more than 3 decades of experience and he's leading the Deloitte private practice in India. In addition to advising clients, he is active in representing before the government on various tax issues, as you saw during the discussion today. And also he's a prolific writer and he has written several books, and he is also he is identified as one of the leading tax advisors by the legal media group Euromoney. He is also recognized as one of the leading tax controversy leaders by International Tax Review. So great to have you, sir. Thank you. And again, I switch to the panelist from online who's a familiar face, I'm sure. If you write in English, he gets 2 misters. Sri M.R. Venkatesh, a distinguished advocate with deep expertise in economic and legal matters. He is well-known voice in national discourse. Frequently, I'm sure you would have seen him appear in television debates and public forums, where he distills complex legal and economic issues to a clear engagement commentary. And his credentials as a chartered accountant before moving into the legal practice is a very nice combination that gives him a unique multidisciplinary grasp of finance, policy and law. So, Mr. Venkatesh sir, we are honored to have you with us today, bringing in blend of legal acumen, insight and public engagement. And we really look forward to you to bring a lot of energy and excitement in today's panel as you do in TV debates.
I hope it is
Welcome.
not as acrimonious. Thank you.
Okay. And finally, we have Sri N. Muthuraman, co-founder of the second avatar of the legendary Swarajya magazine, with 25 years in the financial services industry, investment, raising capital, advising mergers and acquisitions for mid corporates, growth consulting and structured debt fundraise. He has clearly analyzed several companies and their business models to design strategies for successful businesses. Thank you, Muthu, for joining us. And as a media person in the panel, we really look forward to your media spin on the budget. Welcome.
We need your address so that we can send a
Okay,
prasad to
definitely
your
I will.
home MRB from us.
Surely
You can WhatsApp the address.
Thank you, Vice Chancellor, sir. And let the games begin. Over to you, Sri Sriram.
Sri Gurubhyo Namaha.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thanks. As You don't want to feel you're alone, is it? So as the MC said, it's an unenviable task. I mean, not only that, there are 4 stalwarts here, and I think the address or the interaction with the Joint Secretary was also phenomenal, from something that touched upon a lot of things that I thought I would be asking. So I think, so now I need to think on my feet in terms of looking at some more issues. So, before I start, I would just like to quote from the economic survey. I think that would set the tone for this discussion. The preface says, growth is good, outlook is favorable, inflation is contained, rainfall and agricultural prospects are supportive, external liabilities are low, banks are healthy, liquidity conditions are comfortable, credit growth is respectable, corporate balance sheets are strong, and the overall flow of funds to the commercial sector is robust. Now the question is, I don't know what we need to discuss. This looks like almost well. But I think I would have that as the context. Cut what is it? I mean, which actually also takes us to the title itself of this discussion. So, what is it that we expect? How do we take this forward? So, I would first request Sri M.R. Venkatesh to throw light on the economic impact of budget. So how does this budget and annual exercise interpret with the economic situation, growth, consumption, investment, a host of things? How does it actually So I would request teachers and panelists to keep the initial speech to about 8 to 10 minutes so that we can continue the discussions after that in terms. Over to you, MRV.
Sriram, I heard for the last few seconds, except that you gave me the time for 10 seconds, there's some mic disturbance. Only bad things here come to my ears, unfortunately. 10 minutes. Yeah. No, I know that you're all in Mani Mahal. My mind goes back to 1987 when, as a young student of, I just joined BCom at the time, and Palkiwala addressed the budget from the Ramakrishna grounds in J.N. Shetty Road. At that time, it was J.N. Shetty Road. Now it is J.N. Road. So Palkiwala labored to explain, if I remember right, about 115J and 194C being introduced at that time. And his broad understanding or how to interpret the budget had a lasting impression on probably a 19-year-old in me. And that's how I started getting into this understanding of budgets, analyzing budgets. Of course, there is another great doyen in the city of Chennai, Sri Gurumurtiji, who also analyzes the budget and analyzed the budget for a very long period of time. Till I found up to 21 that mostly the criticisms of the budget, the analysis of the budget, the reactions to the budget are more or less templated. So I decided not to do any budget analysis. And from 21, I thought I will take a voluntary retirement. But this time, Shekhar persuaded me, and that comes from Kanchi Mutt. And I thought this was a divine order. So I thought, let me do some more analysis and come back before all of you on my own analysis of the budget. Of course, we all know we are being hit by a Trump storm and Trumponomics, which probably rewrites the grammar of geopolitics, puts newer facets into economics, tariff war, trade wars, all sorts of chaos, crisis, calamities ruling on the world. And in between, we had Operation Sindoor. To my great astonishment, the government this year has spent 80,000 crores in what it claims to be an economic stabilization fund and technology in national security fund to finance national security expenditure with deep technology focus. 80,000 crores that has been spent this current year. Unfortunately, not many publications has focused on this particular thing. In fact, government itself, I do not know, has not come about talking about this 80,000 crores being spent this current year. And I hope that they spend on these type of areas and avenues in the current year also, though the current year I am not able to find that type of spending on these two areas. Probably this was some sort of an extraordinary expense. Again, coming back to the budget, let me tell you on the numbers. This is a 53 lakh crore budget, of which 4 or 5 heads just take out in no time. One would be the interest, which is 14 lakh crores. Again, this never gets discussed because this is a legacy issue. Finance ministers can do nothing much about it. Then we have subsidies, which run to around 4 lakh crores. Then we have defense expenditure. Then we have establishment expenditure and pension. All of this would be around 35 to 40 lakh crores, much of which cannot be altered, and these are issues which continue. We do not seem to have an answer to the interest part, which is around 26% of our total expenditure. 26% of the total budget size, not the expenditure size, total budget size is taken over by expenditure. And that is what is putting us in what I say as a defensive mode, even before the finance minister begins to draw a budget. This could be true of probably Shanmugam Chetty's budget of 1947. This should be equally true of Nirmala Sitharaman's budget of 2026. And what I intend to emphasize here is, because of the stress, there is a fiscal deficit, and probably the finance minister is like Jesus Christ on the cross. And even Jesus on the cross has more elbow room than the finance minister from India when they go about to make the budget. This is my overall architecture of the budget. This is the overall picture of the budget that we get. Now, let me come to some interesting numbers, which I thought I will flag it off. Current year, the budget estimates was that we will mobilize around 14.38 lakh crores on personal taxes. But actually, taxes mobilized on personal taxes are 13.12 lakh crores, meaning there is a deficit of around 120 lakh crores, 120,000 crores. This implies that good amount of money has been put into the hands of the household. And even the budget estimates have not been met by personal taxation. This is a huge relief for the middle class given this year. And naturally, we don't expect rates to be cut next year. And this is well anticipated or well understood. Likewise, there are some major expenses on which I thought there were certain cuts which I am not able to understand. Jal Jeevan Mission, which is one of the Prime Minister's pet program, current year 67,000 crores budgeted, actual spent 17,000 crores. So a deficit of around 50,000 crores in that. Manrega, current year we have planned to spend 88,000 crores, and next year budgeted is just 30,000 crores. And research, development and innovation, which probably we had a conversation with Mr. Bala also as to how there must be a thrust on research, development and innovation. Again, current year budget of 20,000 crores, actual spending is 3,000 crores. So 3,000 crores as an R&D budget for a country of this size naturally raises concern. Naturally, that brings me to some two important announcements. I'm making an overall presentation of what we see from the budget. So I'm not going to scheme by scheme or trying to take point by point and discuss because my time is just 10 minutes. For instance, there was a Bioshakti mission announced for 10,000 crores for 5 years. So I expected at least 2,000 crores of budget outlay for this year, but only 500 crores has been provided. So in this, you will have to understand the government will have administration costs. This will have so many other costs. And 500 crores is not entirely the scheme. The 500 crores will be absorbed with so many other overheads also. And net what flows to the market will be far less than 500 crores. And likewise on semiconductor, there has been a remission of duties on exported products and on semiconductor mission 2.0. Despite all that we have spoken about and seen, there has been an allocation of a mere 1,000 crores on this. So long and short of it, there has been several areas on which the government has done well. And for some strange reason, it has not advertised the numbers. And certain cases, it has spoken in its intent, but the content in terms of allocation is missing. But now let me come to the overall picture of what was expected from the budget and what is probably to be delivered in the next 365 days by the government. Bala did touch upon two of them. One was, of course, employment. The other was the private investment. If one headline story from Economic Times is to be believed, the net accretion to IT sector in the last 9 months has been 17 jobs. Just 17 jobs net accretion according to Economic Times. I'm not here. I've not audited that, so I do not know whether that's a true story, but it has not been effectively countenanced by anybody. So I think that that's a very valid story. So the IT sector is seeing tremendous slowdown, especially with the rise of artificial intelligence. Today we had Mohandas Pai talking about a 50,000 crore investment required in artificial intelligence, seconded by Rajiv Malhotra. And both of them say that India requires something like 50,000 crores only on artificial intelligence, not even on something like semiconductor. Just on artificial intelligence require that type of investments. But is that there's going to be a huge amount of job stress on which I do not know whether the government addresses it sufficiently. But there is something more, which probably the economic survey also said, and also the government's spokespersons and post-budget responses have been, that we have done what we have to do. And Bala also pointed it out, that we have cleaned up the institutions, we have cleaned up the bank balance sheets, we have done so many things. Now it is for private sector to invest. Now, why is private sector not investing? It's the biggest conundrum. It's one of the biggest conundrum. Everything is perfect in India. If you ask, India couldn't have been more happier as a investment destination. But let me tell you, investors do not only look at the issues on your macroeconomic stability. They also look at something called ease of business and also stability. Now, the 2025 income tax was notified on the last week of January, and it is to come into effect on 1st of April 2026. And this budget, I'm sure Shekhar will deal with it, has got 87 amendments. 87 amendments to an Income Tax Act notified. Now, it may be justified, it may not be justified. But you had an act which was thought about by the parliament. We had committees sitting on it for so many years, coming back, and then we had an act enacted, and we notified it in January 27th, only to set it an amendment on 1st of February 87. Now, this is what puts investment off. This is what is destabilizing us. Stability in tax laws, not in rates. Rates can come secondary. People don't mind paying even 40%, but they want to know the law. And likewise, you take this budget also says something very interesting about investment into India, the TISPRO regulations. We had the 2000 regulations. Then we had amended it in 2017. Then we had the 2019 TISPRO amendments. Then we had the 2022 non-debt rules. Now they want to bring in 2026 non-debt rules. Now, so much of it, sometimes in front of your own clients, when they ask a question, even to locate the regulation under FEMA, it is embarrassing because you do not know where to look at it because it's so humongous, and you are put to some sort of a difficulty in finding out where exactly is the regulation. This type of changes, and these are well intended. I'm not saying that these are all not necessary, but why can't we have like tax holidays for data centers, tax amendment holidays for the next 3 years, and say that we will not touch the Income Tax Act for the next 3 years. and say that this is what it is. We have reached a destination point. Let us collect the experience. Like Bala said, we have more or less would like to see the rates running. We like to see the law running and see where it goes. And then in a singular one-shot manner, amend it to say 2029. No other country, Palkhiwala said in 1987. Palkhiwala, I started with Palkhiwala. Let me end my first round with Palkhiwala. Palkhiwala said that the type of amendments you make to the tax laws makes it a gold mine for practicing chartered accountants, tax lawyers. That was 40 years ago. I took to chartered accountancy on the basis of his advice, and I think I have gained immensely from that. I do not want the country to, whenever, Professor Vaidyanathan always says of IIM Bangalore, that in a country where chartered accountants, lawyers, and doctors prosper, the society is not prospering. So it is something that we need to think about, that if chartered accountants are prospering because of the tax law, unnecessary amendment, I'm sure the entire scheme that they have done it on penalty could have thought about 6 months back, and they could have amended it along with the when the act was notified. I can go to several of them, and it is this, shall I say, instability in tax laws. And on top of it, I will make it bold to say that I was seriously anticipating some amendments to the Prevention of Corruption Act when 17A must go. I was seriously looking at praying that the government looks at 45(2) of the PMLA and think that arrests should not be done whimsically, and there must be some checks and balances. I had proposed some of these to the powers that be, but government in all its wisdom did not think about it. That doesn't make this a bad budget. Please understand, these are not issues that I'm criticizing. I'm only bringing it to the fore that stability and ease of business is a predominant one for private sector investment to come in. I'm not talking about investment from abroad. I'm talking about investment within India. With this, I will stop my first 10 minutes. I hope I have not exceeded my time limits. And thank you, Sriram. And thank you all for a very patient hearing.
Thanks, Ravi. Here now. Are you?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. I think that was a typical MRV, opening. So thanks for that. And if I may add, I think that very same meeting, I remember at the Ramakrishna Mission grounds also we said something that, in a society, 90% of the people are honest and 10% of the people are always crooks. And when your tax laws are focused on the 10%, the problem is we are harassing the 90% all the time. If I remember, he said that in that meeting. I think that's a lesson governments haven't learned after 40 years, unfortunately. But anyway, that's the way governments are. So, Mr. Krishnan, is based on the budget, and Krishnan, I would like you to focus on investments in corporate and infrastructure, the logistics. How does this budget, or rather, how do you look at this budget from that perspective in terms of how does this aid investment and the infrastructure side? Over to you.
Thank you, Sriram. I think I'm the least qualified to talk about the budget. One is because I have always believed budgeting is a balancing exercise for the person who's doing it and nothing beyond that. And I think the finance minister, anybody for that matter, or the revenue secretary or the expenditure secretary, they all have a juggling act to perform. So unlike an RBI governor, who can only talk about, who looks at toying with monetary policies, rates and all that, the government or the finance minister also has a political tug on it. So it's not an easy job. Again, coming back to infrastructure, right? So today, if you look at infrastructure, it depends on 3 factors. One is policy setting of the government. I think that has been very, very positive, just not over the past few years. I think the game changer was the GST, a uniform taxation across the country. So what used to happen was it improved supply chains. A company used to have about 25 to 30 warehouses across the country because every state, because of taxation, because they used to keep a warehouse from a taxation perspective, not from a supply chain perspective. So all that consolidated under 6 or 7 warehouses, or at best 10 warehouses. GST was one. Second was the infrastructure spend the country started doing. I think especially the highways authorities. They started building about 25 to 30 kilometers of road every day, and they continue to do it. There have been times when they haven't met the target of 30 plus kilometers, but they continue to do it. So one is policy setting. Second is the amount of investment the government is doing on infrastructure. Third is what is the working capital? Because infrastructure, especially transportation people, they rely heavily on working capital. Unlike someone like us, who is, we are AAA rated entity, we borrow at, we are raising 10-year money, 15-year money at below 8%, because our AAA status allows us to do so. Whereas an MSME who actually needs the money, they're out of capital. So effectively, what is happening, the sad truth is, banks and institutions are Robin Hoods and reverse. They subsidize people like us at the expenditures of the others, where they charge them about 11, 12% borrowing costs. Right. Third is working capital. Fourth is availability and quality of labor. I'll stress on that because I think Bala mentioned about two things. One is employment creation. Now, infrastructure, everybody knows, has creates something called a multiplier effect. Now, every rupee one invested in infrastructure leads to a multiplier effect in the GDP of about 2 rupees in the second year, and about 3 rupees upwards from the third year. This is something that is confirmed by World Bank, by ORF, by Niti Aayog. And I was at a recent meeting with CRISIL, S&P. They had come. They think for an emerging market like India, this multiplier effect could be a lot more. So what are we doing in terms of infrastructure? One is policies. Policies have been extremely favorable, just not in this budget, across. And it's just, we haven't waited for a budget to happen, be it the national logistics policy or be it the Sagarmala, the Bharatmala. I think I'm not batting for the government, but I think they've done the intent is there. I think they've been able to carry it. So if I have to just look at whatever the term the government uses, Viksit Bharat, or getting to that a particular GDP, infrastructure is extremely important. And I think the government has pushed almost all the right buttons. Nobody can satisfy everybody. So you have, there are some gaps. I take it up with the government, I take it up with RBI, I take it up with SEBI. But I think the direction is correct, number one. Number two, what does this budget talk about? Now, this budget, I think it talks about a few things. One is they're spending about almost 3% of the GDP on projects. They're talking about infrastructure projects, be it highways, be it dedicated freight corridors, be it ports. So I think that's one thing when I talk about these are all hard infrastructure. Second is, again, the data centers, which are coming up. I think Shekhar is an authority on that, the tax advantage, everything they're getting. I think that's a very good this thing. Third, Bala mentioned that we have done enough. The government can only do this much. We want the private sector to come in. Now, when you say private sector, why would a private sector come in? Two things. One is conditions are to be favorable. Second is liquidity has to be available. And third important thing is, like MR said, without, sugar coating, you have to be clear. You cannot keep, dilly-dallying. You said one thing, okay, I know, because ultimately, as a CEO of a listed company, I work quarter over quarter. If I don't perform for 2 quarters in a row, the board starts looking for another CEO. Let me just face it. That's how the world works. That's how the business works. Now, where are we in terms of the first thing? And the first thing is very, very commendable in terms of what they want to do. Second thing is data center and everything is good. Manufacturing. I think they're setting the right mechanisms. They're giving the SOPs. But for private sector to invest, two things have happened. One is consumption hasn't picked up. I think whatever the government did over the past 2 years in terms of be it the SOPs, be it liquidity measures, be it taxes or whatever it, I still think consumption hasn't picked up. I mean, that's my view. I could be wrong. Second is capacity utilization across manufacturers is currently at about 70%. Now, unless consumption picks up, I don't see a private sector, private capital formation follows consumption. The government can do whatever it wants in terms of giving some favorable policies and all that. But I want to see that. In terms of infrastructure, in terms of logistics, if you ask me my opinion, I think that sector is doing exceptionally well because a lot of companies have cleaned up their balance sheets. They're sitting on enough capital, so that allows them to leverage if need be. And I think we've been fortunate enough to attract a lot of patient capital because infrastructure needs patient capital. So infrastructure needs long-term financing, long-term patient capital. Fortunately, the foreigners understand it better because any of these, the people who hold equity in these infrastructure investment trusts are more of the, the foreign, either private equity giants or sovereign wealth funds. Like in our case, we have IFC Washington as our investor. We are yet to see the likes of LIC participating. So we are yet to see the likes of domestic institutions participating. So I want to see more domestic institutions, take part in infrastructure. Because not that they don't understand. I mean, they understand India better than any of these other people. But there is a hesitancy. I think overall, I'm happy. I'm happier because what has happened is I was called for my inputs on a consultative paper by SEBI based on the guidelines and what the finance ministry has come up with. I thought that was extremely proactive by SEBI to see how they can marry the measures set by the finance minister, by the government, and to the investors. Over to you, Sriram.
Yeah, thanks, Krishnan. I mean, you did give an overview from a private sector perspective. Still, obviously, there are some unanswered questions on that we would come back to. May I now invite Mr. K.R. Shekhar for his views on the taxation aspects of it, the GCC, AI, semiconductor technology investments, and the like. Thanks.
Thank you, Sriram, and thanks to University for having me here. There's no conflict of interest just because I'm a finance committee. Doesn't mean that I'm here. It so happened that I invited me. Before I answer to your points, I will answer to the two gentlemen who raised the question to Bala because I was moderating it. I was a little bit cutting it short, the question. Of course, Bala though gave an answer, it is my duty to clarify. First, on the healthcare sector, India's committed policy of healthcare sector is to have at least public spend on healthcare sector is target around 3.5% of GDP. And today we are at public spend is around 1.30%, which is far huge gap between 3.5 and 1.3. If you include the state spend, we are at 1.6 to 1.7. We are yet to get the 2.0%, which is the minimal target level for the healthcare spending. There are two challenges on that. Number one, on the ground level challenge and one at the policy level. At the ground level challenges, we have a lot of medical hospitals in the rural, but no doctors. If you see the last year statistics, almost 6,000 to 7,000 medical seats are vacant in medical colleges across India because the doctors are not willing to go and work in the rural area. Second challenge is that the facility in the rural hospitals were not so great. With the result, we don't have a sufficient, what I would call the social security backup for the insurance. Today, a lot of insurance companies are coming out and the government is doing that. So still there is a gap of 0.4% on the healthcare sector spend. Now, this year I saw a direction towards that. I'm not saying this year we're achieving 2 or 2.5, at least I see a direction, because where I see the government is committed at least setting up 6 Ayurveda centers at various places, creating a rural medical hubs in various districts. Every district they want to create a medical hub. The problem with this government, in my view, they don't have a good PR agency to advertise their budget. If this budget had been presented by any other person 10 years, 15 years back, the entire media would have appreciated it. Today, this government do not have a sufficient PR agency to advertise their budget, but the healthcare has got a significant thoughts which can take to a next level. That's my first point on the healthcare. Second is linked a little bit of a taxation. The gentleman asked about why you are doing investment only for the foreign company, not for the domestic company or the data center. It is not a tax holiday for the foreign company. Let me just give an example. Let's say tomorrow we are setting up a data center in, let's say in Siriseri or in Kanchipuram, or university has set up a big R&D park. You are setting up a data center in the R&D park. When you are setting up a data center in the R&D park, you need equipments, manipulate the data, relay the data to go back to the foreign country. So let's imagine that Google is setting up the servers in your data center, which is an Indian data center owned by an Indian person. Google set up the people. Google set the data center and everything, and the data center is connected to the cloud. Now, when Google is setting up the equipment of the data center, there is a issue under the tax law that Google is deemed to create a taxable presence in India because of the fact that Google has got an equipment in India. Now, when the Google has got an equipment in India, it goes back to Google. That you have an equipment in India, therefore your profits, there's a much more bigger issue there. The profits to India. So equipment is in India, so your equipment, to the extent of equipment, you are subject to tax in India. Google will not come and set up any equipment in India. In order for foreign companies to set up their equipment in India, provide support to the Indian data centers, the government said that after 2047, I will not tax the foreign companies due to the presence in India, due to the equipment coming into India. It is not a tax holiday. Just because Google is setting up a data center doesn't mean the Google will have a tax holiday. The Indian company which is set up by Google will continue to pay tax. What is exempted is only that Google US for that equipment. I just want to clarify that. Now, moving on to which were raised. Is that this is a budget in the right direction. Let's step back for a minute. What is the issue that is floating in India? India, US tariff, India, EU, and all the stuff aside. There are 3 or 4 major issues before the finance minister. Number one, there's a huge lack of manufacturing. Second, unemployment generation. There's no employment, there's a huge unemployment. 3, skill development was becoming a bigger issue. 4th, the entire labor-intensive segment which created an employment like MSMEs and textile sector was going through challenges. Now, what this budget is all about? Budget is nothing but, if you ask my CFO of the university CFO, multiple departments will come. Marketing department will ask, boss, I need this much of money for the year. Procurement department will ask, I need this much of money for the year. Human resource department will come and ask, boss, I need a salary increase of 20% for my people. I need money for this year. His job is to allocate the money for the respective departments, and the respective departments will have to spend money. Budget is also nothing but a statement of receipts and payments where the finance minister allocates the money for the various ministries. You assume the significance. The reason is that when you payment is coming through an allocation for various ministries. The receipts or the revenue generation is coming through the tax collection. The two tax collections area used to have, one is income tax, another is central excise and customs. The central excise and customs amendments were supposed to be very confidential. In fact, nobody knows the amendment got pronounced. So the budget was kept very confidential, and therefore the budget used to have such a significance where all of us used to listen to Mr. Palkhiwala, any other expert after the demise of Palkhiwala, to understand what is there for me and what is there for an industry. Today, the central excise and customs has taken over by GST. Customs is still there. Central excise has taken over by GST, where you see a GST announcement not coming to the budget. And another collection is through the income tax. Today, income tax collection amendments is not required in the budget. It can come on a monthly basis or on a quarterly basis, depending upon the policy changes what the government has. Therefore, to the extent the budget, I'm not saying last it sheet, but emphasis on the importance of the budget needs to come down, because that's something which is in our back of our mind. Now, moving out of that, from a sectoral perspective, as Krishnan said, infra, we already got a 12 lakh crore significant spend. The areas which attracted me in the budget before I come on taxation is the textile sector. A very good proposals on the textile sector were setting up a 6 national textile parks. This national textile park was mooted by me and my colleague way back in 2002. 23 years for the government to go through the papers and coming up with a proposal of textile parks. 6 textile parks in India. Second, one of the important issues for the government units after the challenges on the Trump is that they were able to export the goods. They all manufactured it, they were not able to export it because the US was not taking it up because of the tariffs. But if you have a proposal, you can sell the goods in the domestic tariff area at a much lower rate, so that they'll help a push. Second important segment which creates employment is MSMEs. MSMEs, per se, they were looking at only at the banking credit, they were not looking at the equity funding. First time the government is pushing at 10,000 crore. Of course, I can debate the amount is insufficient because 10,000 crore over a period of 5 years is 2,000 crore per annum, which is insignificant for an MSMEs. But the fact that the government has taken the step towards us in the right direction. Plus, you add up 2,000 crore coming for micro industries, 12,000 crore. 2,000 crore over a period of 5 years, so at least you get 10 plus to 12,000 crores for 5 years. It's almost coming to 2,000, 2,500 crores per annum. The equity funding is very important. That helps the MSMEs. The second important point of MSMEs is that, which goes back to my statement in economics which I read to Bala, 7.87 lakh crore is due to MSMEs from public sectors, not from private sectors. Now, the government said that you bring all the MSMEs and POCs in the trades, moment you bring it in the trades, within 45 days, the public sector in the company will have to clear the dues to MSMEs. There is automatically a push for the people to clear it. At least to that extent, there is a direction. So, third important, which I really liked it, what I'm focusing on is that, of course, Mr. M.R. Venkatesh 17 job incremental on IT sector. Leaving that point aside, Indian GCCs are here to stay in India. Okay, sorry, Krishnan. Okay. Indian GCCs are going to stay in India. Krishnan, can you go on mute?
No, the first the finance secretary spoke, then someone else spoke.
Yeah, that was a long time.
We were able to see.
Yeah, I saw. Right in the beginning, I think. It's still on.
Yeah, still on.
I thought-
Sorry. So, ANGCs are here to stay in India. If there is a myth that ANGCs will create an unemployment, the answer is no. ANGCs will create more employment. It will create more opportunities for the youngsters. And today, India is a land of ANGCs in the days to come. And where we need a significant investment, and what MRV raised about the tax certainty. The government is pushing in that direction. The tax certainty, I'm not getting on the technical aspect of it, but I'm just giving it to simple layman language. most of the GCCs are the 100% subsidiaries of the foreign companies, or 51% subsidiaries of the foreign companies. When the foreign companies set up any IT, let's say given an Oracle or a Google or a Microsoft or any big companies in India, when they set up their companies in India, they raise the bill on the foreign company, and the Indian company receives the revenue from the foreign company for the work what they do to the global companies. Indian authorities ask a margin of almost 25 to 30% on the bottom line. That means the total cost is 30% is the margin what the Indian authorities ask. And some cases 25%. And all the companies are in a dispute for the last 20 years. The point that came before the authorities was that, which fortunately I was interacting with the finance ministry in a very in-depth level. We need a certainty. Unless you give a certainty, these foreign companies will not set up the shops in India and GCCs and DAs. It will go to all other regions. While we may think about we have a great employment, we have got a great people, the people will also migrate to other countries where they get an opportunities. We will lose the employment opportunities. So we wanted a rate which is certain and which is acceptable. First time in my history of income tax language, which I've been practicing for the last 30 years, government accepted a 15.5% margin for all the GCCs and AA centers which has got a revenue threshold of 2,000 crore. That means a climb down of almost 6% from the authorities' position of 22% to 15.5%. 6% of profit they have foregone. That means 30% of tax of 1.8% of the revenue, the government has foregone the tax liability, tax revenue, which is very significant in the right direction. That's most important. Similarly, other one I just wanted to bring it on the progressive amendment. I wanted to mention it. The government talked about electronic components manufacturing. In electronics components manufacturing, it is not possible for electronic components manufacturer. Let's say for a minute, a manufacturer is manufacturing the components for an iPhone. The person who is manufacturing the components for the iPhone will not own the material which is required for manufacturing of an iPhone, will not own the machinery for manufacturing the component of an iPhone. What will have only a laborer? Because the material belongs to the Apple. I'm just giving an Apple as an example. Don't go on to Apple, guys. I just want to give an Apple as an example for the layman. When Apple manufactures this iPhone, let's say in India, Apple will give the equipments, Apple will give the components. The manufacturer will have to fit the components into the iPhone and sell it back to the Apple. Now the question arises is that the guy who is manufacturing the particular components or assembling the particular components, he doesn't own the components. The components are owned by Apple. Under language, it is called toll manufacturer, not a contract manufacturer. In the case of a tire manufacturer, normally tire manufacturing happens in electronic component industry, very high level. And in the case of a tire manufacturing industry, a person who does not own the component, a person who does not own the machine, the foreign person who is supplying the equipment, who is buying the machine, has a huge tax issue. First time in my life, I've seen the government saying that we will exempt a particular company for a period of 5 years from a tax perspective. This is what is important when you wanted to incentivize the manufacturing. Why people are not coming for the private setup? Let me give a classic case. I know there's a balance sheet of 100 top BSE 100 companies. The cash sitting in the balance sheet can buy all the US companies from India. So that much of cash sitting in the balance sheet. Now, why this is not coming up from setting up the economy? Only because the regulatory issues and connected with the ease of doing business was a challenge. And this budget is trying to address that through various measures. Now, what will be the advantage of these measures? This advantage, all those things creates a sound ecosystem which will boost up the manufacturing, which will boost up the technology, and in turn, which will create more MSMEs, which will create an employment opportunities. That's the reason I believe this budget is in the right direction, understanding the fundamentals and taking the fundamentals to the next level. I just want to pass it here.
Thank you, sir. I think that was a bit of a confidence booster, I would say. The first two. Now I'll invite Mr. Muthuraman for his views on the impact of the budget on MSMEs. He will also focus on the defense sector as well as touch upon some aspects of the agri sector. Yes.
Shri Guru Namaha. Thanks for giving the opportunity for the university. And let me just step back as in layman terms, as a media, we do try to address as broad an audience as possible, particularly for the younger people in the audience. See, set the budget in context. So it took India 60 years to reach its first trillion, 7 years to reach its second trillion. Should have been shorter, but again another 7 years for the third trillion because of COVID. The fourth trillion was 4 years, and we are in the process of reaching our fifth trillion. Probably it will happen in 3 years' time. The next one will come in 2 years. Probably the next one will come in 1.5 years, and thereafter we'll be adding $1 trillion every year. So the direction is very clear. What it took 76 years for us to reach this 4 trillion will happen in the next 7 years or so. So opportunities are immense in India for the youngsters, and correspondingly from the same, because of the government measures of formalization, starting with demonetization and GST and several other measures, the tax buoyancy is up. So as the GDP grows, the government revenues have also correspondingly grown. Just to put things in context, when NDA 1, Vajpayee relinquished this thing, government revenues were from 2.5 lakh crores. When 2014, when Manmohan Singh regime ended, that revenue was about 9 to 10 lakh crores. Today we are talking of 28-30 lakh crores of government revenue. Budget expenditure is higher correspondingly every year. So the amount is substantially grown from just in our own lifetime from 2.5 lakh crores to 28 lakh crores. That gives a lot more elbow room for a government of the day to spend that money where they want to. So that actually determines the fate of the country and the fate of the common man. Whether you want to spend it in subsidies, whether you want to spend it in freebies, whether you want to spend it in this thing, every government tries to strike a good balance between these. What struck me in this budget is the substantial continuous focus on capital expenditure. So 12 lakh crores, this is the third year in row of capital expenditure, government capital expenditure in excess of 10 lakh crores. So that kind of money investment in infrastructure has its own spin-off effects, the value addition that the multiplier effect that it creates. If you see over a period of time, the government's focus has been moving steadily upwards in terms of value creation. The initial years were providing really basic services, your toilets or bank accounts or bringing you on electricity and things like that. The next phase moved in the 2019 to 24. That phase moved to slightly higher value added products as in health insurance, Awas Yojana for homes, even the Jal Jeevan Mission, a small rejoinder to what MRV said. It's a sharp dip in the utilization of funds for Jal Jeevan Mission for 25-26, which is restored again back to the crores. Government operational challenges and some cases where it is fraud was detected, etc. So government took a pause and ensured that the corrections were in place. And there were some states were not providing their corresponding 2-3 different reasons, but still whatever from 31% to 81% over this mission life. 90 was providing such basic services, health insurance. Our focus now create infrastructure and enable the population to earn their livelihood themselves. So that is the focus in the current last 2-3 more in an ocean. A similar self-reliant fund that government announced earlier, which contributed maximum up to 20%, and the private sector had to bring in the 5 times that amount. Total almost, I think, 48-50,000 crores have been invested, but no beneficiaries were some 800 companies. So that's a very small number. Yes, you still need those numbers, but that may not move the needle much. What I liked about this thing, what Mr. Bala also mentioned, is that focus on trades, getting all the PSCs mandatorily on trade, enabling trades in the GEM portal also, and allowing trades as a asset-backed security for providing securitization. These are good measures. The MSMEs chronically face the issue of receivables, so this will help. More than this, a much better impact was created outside the budget, which was the government's focus on. First they started the to disclose in their how much they owe MSMEs. That was the first level. The second ones, every corporate had to report how much they are due to MSMEs. The third level, they actually expenditure, creditors, they disallowed that entire expenditure in the P&L itself. So which means they had to incur a much higher